April 25th, 2026 was a particularly hot day. It was a sizzler as everyone cranked up their fans and air conditioners to stay cool. Electricity demand reached an all-time high. It is a time of great energy disruption.
President Trump insists Iran.
The peace talks between US and Iran.
With the Strait of Hormuz closed.
The US-Israel war against Iran. This crisis will disrupt the ongoing energy disruption. Renewable energy is making inroads into electricity generation. Solar energy provided a quarter of the country's electricity demand. So the transition is happening, but it is incomplete. What do we do so that we do not lose momentum? I want to talk to you about what this means for a country like India. I am Sunita Narain. This is my show. I hope you will continue to watch, to share, to follow, and to like. Please do send me your comments. This is very useful, not just to me, but to the full community of the concerned and caring people who I know are watching and listening. So let's go back to the question of the oil shock. What is clear is that unlike the oil shock of the 1970s, when solar and wind energy were nascent and untested technologies, now these technologies have shown that they can work at scale. The question is, how will the world evolve around the questions of energy security and rebuilding confidence in supply chain? This is where the new energy map will be drawn between the old and the new countries. The old countries that supply fossil fuel and China as the powerhouse of the new green technology. If you look at India, it is very clear that India needs to grow its energy. We need energy for economic growth. We need energy for securing livelihoods and for meeting basic human needs. It is in this scenario that we have to understand the current oil disruption. We know today the Indian government strategy is to displace but not replace coal, and that this strategy is within reach. But there are challenges, and this then is to be the center of our future focus. But first, let's understand that the very nature of the question has changed. It is no longer should we or should we not do energy planning to include new green technologies like solar or wind. The question for today is how will they fit into a grid so that supply is reliable? These energy technologies are different. Unlike the conventional fossil fuel-driven power stations, wind and solar are intermittent suppliers of electricity. They supply electricity when the wind is blowing or the sun is shining. Therefore, the challenge is how the power generated during the sun-wind hours will be stored, or how will these intermittent energy systems fit with generation of electricity using coal or gas or hydropower or nuclear. The picture becomes very clear when you consider recent events. April 25th will go down in history. April 25th, 2026 was a particularly hot day across different regions of India. It was a sizzler. And this meant that power demand spiked as everyone cranked up their fans and air conditioners to stay cool. Electricity demand reached an all-time high, touching 256 gigawatt. But what was incredible was that at its peak supply, renewable energy had kicked in. Solar energy supplied some 24% of the electricity, and the total non-fossil, which includes hydel, which includes wind, added up to 30%. Big. But as my colleagues who did further analysis point out, that this is only half the story of that new power day. During the solar energy peak of the day, coal power flexed to its technical limit of 55%. I need to explain this. Coal plants are designed for certain operational limits and they cannot go below this unless they are redesigned for flexibility. So even as coal during the day went down to 55%, at night, when the sun was not shining, coal kicked back in. And now it met up to 82% of the electricity. This is where the rubber now meets the new road. How will the grid meet demand of power in the non-solar hours? How will coal power plants operate or not during the period? The way ahead, most logically, say my colleagues, is to redesign coal plants for what is called flexibility so that they can operate at lower capacities. But it is also about careful grid planning so that we do not build more coal plants, because they will have the same problem of being inflexible in fitting into intermittent renewable energy sources. It is about planning an energy mix which can be fitted and flexed. So, for instance, hydropower or even gas-based turbines are easier to switch on and off as compared to coal power. This is the question as we move ahead. But there is another side of this solution, which is let's just build storage for the generated electricity during the day. Storage means batteries. Storage also means what is called pumped storage, which is that you store the electricity in reservoirs of water and then use your hydel plants when you need it. Bottom line is more storage. Now, this can be done at the power plant, it can be done at the discom, or it can be done at the household. But the issue here is, what will be the cost of this storage battery and where will it come from? This then is the second big question that we need to discuss. All this then goes back to the confidence in the supply chain for energy. The difference between oil and gas supply chains and those for renewable energy is geographies and geopolitics. It is about producers of oil versus the manufacturers of green tech. Quite simply, this translates down to US versus China. But it is also a fact that oil and gas requires flow to be assured, while renewable technology is about purchasing the stock. In other words, once a country secures its solar power plant, it does not have continued dependence for regular supply, as in the case of oil or gas. But for this to work, countries must deepen their ability to manufacture green technologies, to secure vital components, and to build confidence in the new supply chain. If this does not happen, then be very clear the green transition will not take off. Look at the controversy in India today. The Society for Indian Automobile Manufacturers, called SIAM, has reportedly objected to the Delhi government's proposal to mandate only sale of electric two-wheelers from April 2028. They say in their objection that this would deepen the dependence on China for battery imports and heavy rare earth magnets. Now, if this argument is accepted, it would derail India's transition to cleaner vehicles and cleaner air. So, for us, it is critical that we invest in battery technology and we also build our confidence in the new supply chains that exist in the world. The exciting part of this is that the future of energy will be about finding answers to these questions. It is no longer about digging for more coal or more oil. It is no longer about just the question of reliability of old technologies. Our belief that only conventional coal or gas-based power plants or the internal combustion engine vehicles will work. There is a new energy future out there. There is much more that can and is being done to build a green energy transition which works for people, which works for the planet. But at the end, it is about finding great order in what is clearly a time of great disorder. This is what we all need to work on.